Hello and welcome to the NFL Experts League review for week 13-14. Today we're joined by myself and Stephen Riley. A little change up from last week. We're hoping to be able to do this on a weekly basis, myself and Riley together, just to add a little something to the league, a little bit of fun, see how everyone likes this. I think this will work better as well because me and Riley can both bounce off each other instead of just myself and my van at work.
Listen to two folk talking shit.
Get to opinions and all that as well. So it should be good. We're basically just going to be reviewing the matchups for week 13. Obviously, everyone knows who's in the playoffs now, but go and jump into a little review. We'll be previewing, giving predictions for the NFL matchups this week. We will be previewing the week 14 playoff games and the spoon games, and we'll be giving starts of the week and a little special segment at the end as well as some injury news and that as we go along. So we'll kick off obviously with just kind of main news, major news from week 13. If you want to kick us off with that, Riley.
So one of the big ones was the fight at the Dolphins game. That's where I wanted to go for you as a Dolphins fan. These Dolphins and Bengals were rioting. Brian LaFleur, was that his name? Brian LaFleur, that's his name? He's writing about it.
Aye, Flores.
Aye, Flores. Aye, he was square going. He was ready to square go everybody. I suppose that's what you want in a coach.
Aye, well, that's one of what I was going to bring up. I absolutely loved Coach Flores' reaction to that. He sprinted for the Dolphins sideline over to the Bengals sideline, and he was absolutely heated. But it just showed that he's passionate about his players and that he's going to defend his players at all costs. And obviously, it's not a great sight with the Dolphins players all going over and all that, but I think it was justified because that guy, that was the second time he'd done a dirty late hit on a special teams player on a punt.
It was a bit of a low blow because there was no need for it. It was just took the guy right out. But there was, I think, watching it as a neutral for that stand, it was the whole bench, all the coaches, everybody. It's the first time I can remember really seeing that, where it was the full team was on the field at the one time. I've seen where it's the offense or the defense or the special teams, but it was like literally every man, the whole 50-odd squad plus a coach, just on the square going everything. But that was a good start to red zone.
The one thing I don't understand is how that guy never got ejected, how he wasn't ejected for that. I mean, in total, there was 5 ejections in that game. Tyler Boyd and Xavier Howard got ejected earlier on in the game for what was nothing. It was a petty coming together. They kind of slapped each other and shoved each other on the sidelines. That wasn't an ejection in my eyes. There was nothing in that. But then obviously there was another 3 ejected during that big brawl, mass brawl kind of thing. Devontae Parker actually hit, I don't know if anybody caught it in the replays, but Parker hit one of their coaches by accident. He was trying to shove a player and ended up shoving one of their coaches down. That's why he got ejected.
He's my fantasy guy, just got to be careful. Is that why he get shockingly low points? I didn't realise he got ejected. Fuck's sake. The other big talking points that I had noted was the fact that the Jets almost went to 1-11, but even the Jets managed to fuck up going 1-11.
That's Adam Gase for you. I've been through that experience a couple of years ago, so I don't envy them at all. Terrible coach.
Browns hitting 41 points versus the Titans. That's got to be a talking point. The fact that they managed they were destroying them in the first half. They nearly came back, the Titans, I believe. But to put up 41 points regardless against a team like the Titans is still a good result.
I don't think the Titans' defence is that great. Obviously, it showed. I think they've been all right to date, but it showed in that game. I mean, Baker threw 4 touchdowns in that and about 4 million yards passed for. So That was a bit of an upset, that game, I think. Although the Browns have been very good this season, so
Up and
maybe
down
they are.
team. That's about the only things I had noted. And for you,
Got Aaron Rodgers throwing his 400th career touchdown. He's the fastest quarterback in NFL history to throw for 400 career touchdowns. Took the fewest amount of games to get to that mark. So that was very good for him. Darren Waller, tight end, 17 targets, 13 catches, 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. Unbelievable from a wide receiver, never mind a tight end. But I think the Raiders' offense kind of runs through their tight end. That's what Gruden likes. So that was a huge game for Waller.
I wonder how that Waller this year for the Raiders has been unbelievable. I wonder where that puts him in fantasy drafts next year. You've obviously got Kittle and Kelsey are like the two main guys who sometimes go in the top 2 rounds. Does he suddenly join that elite stance of a top, like in the first 3 rounds, he comes off the board?
Well, I think it's obviously your Kelsey and your Kittle, and then I think the next tier down after that's Mark Andrews, who's been poor this season, and Darren Waller. Waller was good last season as well. I'm sure I had him last season. I can't remember, but he was good last season too.
I think Zach Ertz is in that as well, because Zach Ertz has been terrible as well. He was that kind of 3rd, 4th round pick.
He might drop out of that then, wouldn't he? Because I think Waller went in about the 6th or 7th round, so he'll probably take a wee tier jump next draft.
I don't know who's got him, but he's a keeper. I don't know who's got him, but it's definitely a keeper.
Definitely. Last couple of things. Steelers obviously no longer undefeated. Beat by the Reds. Nearly said it. Beat by the Washington football team. That was one of the shocks of the week. Washington defeating the Steelers finally, and the other one was the Giants, obviously beating the Seahawks as well. 2 shocks from the same division. So.
The Steelers were due to get beat at some point, and to be fair, Washington have been coming onto a game a wee bit, and their defence. Some folks say early doors it was just that Chase Young and all the other guys that really, really good defence. So it doesn't surprise me. The Steelers are probably sitting with that. With there probably been 3 or 4 defeats in my eyes, really. They've just played easier teams, got away with a few things. I don't think they're as good as that. What was it, 11-0 at the time was? They were certainly not that sort of team.
Their schedule's been quite easy when you look at some of the quarterbacks they've come up against in teams. And that Redskins defensive line, that Washington defensive line is legit. That's one of the best D lines in football in my eyes.
You're going to have to put an explicit at the bottom of this just to say that you're using racial slurs.
I say it all the time. I can't get it out of my head, but it'll come eventually, I'm sure. That pretty much wraps up the segment for the main notes. That's everything I've got. So
matchup time for last week. We'll go for the first one. I'll introduce your matchup then, because it was yourself versus Ben. That was a hefty matchup, but you seem to, no offence, Ben, you took him out quite early, a really high score, 132-97. It's a good win in MD's books. How did you go on? Let me see. Your biggest player was Hill at quarterback. He had almost 28 points, which even for him was a really good week. Looking at Ben, Ty Hill was the only guy to really score decent points in 21. All the rest of the guys sort of hit as they were projected, which is probably Ben's downside and kind of knocked him out of the place for that second seed of a bye.
He's obviously highlighting Hilton there. He's every time he plays against the Texans, he just absolutely lights up. And he's playing them again next week, so that'll be a start again there. Apart from that, Miles Sanders, DJ Chark,
Aye.
Hayden Hurst and Benny Snell, who was starting for the Steelers last week with Connor out, they were all shocking, pretty much.
That Washington defence destroyed Snell. Just never had a chance.
And from my perspective, Jonathan Taylor finally showed up for the first time in weeks for me. Looks like he's getting more involved again now, so hopefully, I had him as a keeper for next season, so hopefully he's going to show me more towards the end of the season. So hopefully he'll be one of my keepers.
Even your bench, you had that, is it the boy San Francisco, Ayuk? You had him sitting there with 18 points, and it's another guy you could have put in for Brandon Cooks. So he had a really good squad.
I put in Deebo Samuel ahead of him, and the only difference there was the touchdown. Ayuk got the touchdown there, didn't he? So, but no, Chris Carson had a very good game as well for me, as usual. And Michael Thomas actually got over 100 yards because Taysom Hill actually threw the ball quite a bit last week. So,
I heard it was it 3 passing touchdowns or 2 passing touchdowns? 2 passing touchdowns.
Two. But he actually threw the ball quite a lot, so that was a change. But no, that lifted me off the bottom of the league for the time being, and as you said, that prevented Ben getting the second bye week. So
the other ones was it Clark at 110 versus Robert at 106, and again that was another just positional down at the bottom, just a wee bit of movement on there.
That was a close game, that one.
4
points, 4 points or something in that.
It's always tough to lose a matchup.
That I would highlight in this is that Clark's 2 running back position starters, they only got just over 10 points, which is never good, but luckily Roberts was the same. And luckily for Clark, David Montgomery came up big for him. I think Montgomery got about 20 points or something. You'll probably have that hand.
25 points, aye. So it's a good that sort of that single-handedly probably really won that match. Just getting that many, it's just under quarter of your total points for the week. It's always good when somebody can hit over 20 points.
Just a last thing for that. Robert's kicker outscored 5 of his starters, which is never going to win you a game, really. 12 points, I think his kicker got from memory. And that outscores 5 of your starters. You're at 12 points, you're never really going to win a game. He still ran it close, mind you. So.
Aye, he was unlucky. The next one was Gary, Houston and Andy, which was probably the biggest matchup of the week, because that was a sort of winning you're in scenario for, I think it was for either player. I think no matter who won, they were in because of their points that they've scored accumulated over the season. So 115 to 113, somehow, some way, Gary sneaked in at the last minute with a couple of cracking. I think it was Deontay Johnson was his last player, and he came up with 17 points. So to get that, he had plenty of yards and a TD, and Andy's guys just imploded. He had Stefan Diggs had 14 points, which was as expected, but was it Zach Moss at the Bills? He only got 2 points, which that's the difference. If he gets anywhere near his average, Andy's in the playoffs, and as it would have happened from other scores, Gary would have got in, but that would have meant actually Gary McNaught never, but we'll cover that in a minute. But aye, close one, but he got there.
Again, that I want to highlight there, the quarterback was a difference in that matchup. Herbert got under 5 points. I mean, even if Herbert 7 points from a quarterback, that's like kind of unheard of. You'll get occasional games with under 7-8 points from a quarterback, but to get under 5 points, if he had just got an extra 2 points, but I would have been raging if I was Andy with that.
His points total, his lowest points total for the season, Herbert, had been 16.7. And just as a crucial time when you need in the playoffs, and Andy gets a 4-pointer, it's just do you know how you know when just everything's against you? I think Andy has to join that list of a few of us that have had just one of those seasons, and you just whether it be this year or previous years, and it's just like everything's went against me. I think if I'm Andy at that point, I'm just going, there's just nothing I can have done. It's not meant to be.
You wouldn't expect that for the way Herbert's played this season. You'd expect at least that average about 16 points from him. But that was a shocker. So 7 points. If you only need 7 points for your quarterback to win a matchup, and you don't win it, that just sums up this season in fantasy, doesn't it? And real football.
Next one up was myself on 108 points and Pedro on 103, which again, I was already in the playoffs, but fighting for that second seed. Just couldn't get there, didn't get enough points together. But if you're Pedro, how gutted are you that 2 of your guys got 0 points? It's just it's the difference between making the playoffs and no, you're talking about Andy being unlucky. This is equally just as unlucky that Pedro should have beat me. You see it on paper. He's got Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Kyle Rudolph both sitting on 0 points. It's just one of those unlucky situations.
Loads of folk get caught out with that Clyde Edwards-Helaire thing because they get activated quite late on in the week, I'm sure. And they said he was going to play. And I think it was an illness or something.
It was
he had.
But he sat on the bench. He actually sat on the bench, his kit, in full kit, ready to go. So he was still listed as available, but then he just never played a snap. And you're like,
never played a snap at all.
I know it was obviously it was probably psychological. So when they're playing, they're just trying to make the other team think, oh, we've got our best players ready to go. So they need to match up for that. But nah.
That was another close game though as well. 5 points or something in that.
Aye. Me personally, I deserve to get beat, but those two players, I had a couple of guys that played okay, but it was definitely a Pedro week. Pedro done too good.
When you've got a tandem of Chubb and Aaron Jones at running back, then that's going to be enough to win any matchup really, especially when you're going up against Giovanni Bernard and Gallman as the other opposition's two running backs.
Yep. You've froze here.
Can you pause?
Mine. No, I've not paused. You've went all kind of frozen.
Pause.
Right, a few technical difficulties there, a bit like Pedro's season, so we're going to move on to James versus Lee McNaught. James got 134, our saviour and number 1 seed, versus Lee, who got 96.
James has been flying this season, absolutely flying. It just seems that everyone in the league's been affected by injuries and COVID, and James has just been sailing away at the top as if it's not happening in the world. He's oblivious to it. That's very lucky. That's very lucky for him. But
Lee in his first season, a tad unlucky not to make the playoffs. And actually, I think we touched on the fact that he was in with a shout mathematically to make the playoffs, and then somehow he ended up bottom. Which, how the hell that happens, I have no clue. But I think Clark had mentioned in the WhatsApp group, it's a COVID season where anything can happen. You should never be in with a shout to qualify for playoffs and then finish bottom. But it shows we were all competitive and we kind of were in it together, bar James. I think we were all in it together fighting COVID. But hey-ho.
It shows how tight the league was this season, obviously, bar James running away with it.
But again, he's got the Devontae Adams and Tyler Lockett, and then he's got the Rams defense, Rodgers, Dalvin Cook, even Todd Gurley, a really poor week. But overall, most of the season, the guys have been performing for him. So
I see it's that tandem of Rodgers and Devontae Adams. That's been absolutely huge for him. You're probably talking about 60 points at least out of just the two of them every week this season.
But it depends now, because if Lazard starts performing slightly better, like he has been, because he's just come back, and Tonyan is also back for injury. So I'm not saying Devontae Adams isn't going to get them, but he's maybe not going to get as much. So again, it was Eagles cornerbacks. The Eagles cornerbacks are terrible. So we'll see what happens. But James is the guy to beat. He's got a bye. He'd already secured that many weeks ago, but and then Lee was a bit unlucky.
2, was it he finished?
I think so. 11-2. Tannehill performing well for Lee, and Gesicki had a really good week. I think he's going to be potentially one of these guys that, depending what round he was drafted in, that's the guy I'd be looking at. I don't know if it was Lee's pick or not, but it's definitely one of the guys I'd be looking at if he was. But, I don't know who drafted him.
I don't know, because he's doing well now because our receiver corps is gubbed. Preston Williams went out obviously early in the season, so it's been kind of Parker and Gesicki, and I don't know. I like Gesicki. He's so athletic for a tight end, but I don't know how. I don't think I would be using a keeper on him. We're getting a wide receiver back, arguably our best wide receiver from last season, and obviously we all our top draft picks we've got in the upcoming draft as well. I don't know that I would be doing that. Obviously it'd be a last minute decision anyway, so aye, that's my views on that.
Aye. And the last matchup for the week was Dan versus Gary McNaught. So Dan was on 154 points and Gary was on 117, which Dan secured second seed with that total, which he was already sort of running away with it, but myself and Ben were there with a shout when he very early opened up a lead to he was over 100 at some point early in the Sunday afternoon, so he was never going to lose that at that stage. He had so many players left, so congratulations to Dan securing that second seed in the first round bye. But it was a good matchup.
Dan was the highest scorer on the week, if memory serves me right, with that 154 points. But that's what happened when we talked about that Darren Waller game. 13 receptions, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then obviously he had his quarterback there as well, Derek Carr, just under 40 points. So.
I'm assuming that's probably Derek Carr's highest score for the season, his haul for the season. He said nothing like it. It's probably he's never been within 10 points of hitting 37. So it's cracking week. So it's especially after I think Pedro had Carr last week, and I think
0.6 points.
It's something ridiculous. 0.6. So talk about a bounce back week. Unlucky Pedro. But another one, and Gary, to be fair, scored 117 points, which would have beat a fair amount of us this week. He'd have beat Andy, Gary, myself, Pedro. So it was no mean feat to get that. But he made it into the playoffs regardless, so congratulations to Gary getting that.
First year as well, isn't it? So,
points total. The accumulated points total was the key thing there, that consistently trying to hit above 100 is made sure he got him in there. So, and that I think wraps up the week 13 fantasy.
That does it for the review there. Now moving on to the predictions for real life NFL games, and we will start with the Panthers against the Broncos.
Well, before we do that, shall we cover the Thursday night? We made our predictions before, remember?
Sorry.
So we knew we would record this on Friday night, so we made our predictions the night before. So the game finished 24 to the Rams, 3 to the Pats, and Ian's prediction was a score of 17-10 to the Rams, and they were going to be under the score of 44, which was the total over and under. So he predicted that correct, and I think you also had the Rams minus 4.5, which was the spread. Equally, I had the Rams at 24-17, and I also got that correct with the same other predictions. So far we're 1-1 on both the other bracket. We're doing good that. So predicted the wins. But next up, Panthers versus Broncos. So we don't know each other's what we've said here. So you go first then.
So the betting markets, the Panthers -3 are the favourites, obviously at -3, and the over under. This was obviously from last night when I checked during the night at work. Panthers -3 are favourites, and the over under was sitting at 45.5. So I think that the Panthers will cover the spread of -3, so they'll win by more than 3 points, and the game will hit the over. I just think with the Broncos, that AJ Bouye, their best cornerback, gets suspended for the drugs thing. I think that could result in a lot of long plays to Robbie Anderson. I mean, the Broncos should be able to run well on the Panthers because the Panthers have got a poor run defence, but Drew Lock's vulnerable to turnovers. So, Panthers to cover and over.
So I went Panthers to cover, but I have went for the under on that matchup. So we'll see who comes out right on that. There's just something about the Broncos and the Panthers that just shouting out to me the under 45.5. Next one was the Bears and the Texans at Soldier Field. The total over under was 45, and the spread is minus 1.5. So I've went for the Texans minus 1.5, and I've put the game again as under 45. So we shall see what your thoughts are.
Okay, so I've actually went for an upset in this one. I think the Bears will actually beat the Texans because of the low thing. I had it by Texans -1, but obviously it's changed or whatever. Minus 1.5. It doesn't really make a difference. They still have to win by 2. So I think the Bears will actually win this one. And I don't like saying that because the Bears are shocking to watch. But I think they'll have enough and they'll hit the over. I just think that David Montgomery's set up for a huge game because that Texans run defense is shocking. Chicago pass rush is great, but they are missing some guys in the defensive backfield. So Texans should be able to pass, and I think Trubisky will be able to pass on them as well. So I think this will be a kind of back and forth game.
Trubisky can pass? What?
Exactly, I know. That's why I said I don't like saying it.
If you said that Montgomery was going to run the show, I'd have agreed.
No, I think Big Dick Nick. I think it'll be a kind of back and forth game, to be honest. So as hard as that is to say, I'm fancying the Bears in that one.
We shall see, but so far our cumulative bet is non-existent because we have disagreed here. Take the Panthers -3. That's all the one I've got. Next, Bengals versus Cowboys, and that's at the Paul Brown Stadium.
On this one.
Well, it depends. You go first.
So Cowboys are favourites by -3.5. I had it by, and over under was 42.5. So I'm taking the Cowboys to win by the more than 3.5, and I think it's going to hit the over.
See, you're the glass half full kind of guy. I'm in the under again. I've usually when I put these bets on, I'm always in the over, but this week I'm just so many games look under for me.
Did you take the Cowboys though? Yeah,
I took the Cowboys. You can't look past them. There's a bit of resurgence.
The only reason I took the over is because both defenses are absolute shocking. I mean, I think the Bengals gave up something like 280, 290 rushing yards to the Ravens last week there. I think both defenses are shocking. The Cowboys have showed me enough last week on offense with Dalton that they should be pretty decent enough for the rest of the week. Probably like a middle of the pack offense.
All right.
And this is an Andy Dalton revenge game. Going back against his former team Bengals. Said he wasn't good enough. Maybe starting against them for the Cowboys.
Didn't even think about that. So there you go. There's another wee shout in there. So we've got next, we get Jags versus Titans. The over-under I had at the time was 52, and the Titans were this over. It was -7 was the spread. So I've went for the Titans at -7, and I again have went under. Trust me, there is a few overs in here as well. But again, I've just went for the under. There just seems to be a lot of teams that it seems to be, like I said, the Jags, I know they can put up some points occasionally, but I just feel that the Titans, they won't. It'll be a close one. I think that's one of the ones I was wavering either way, but I think under 52, I'll take that.
Even with the Titans giving up 4 passing touchdowns to the Browns last week.
But again, the Browns' offense, you've got Baker, you've got Landry, they've got several players who can create something. The boy is at Luton, is that what his name is? The Jags just now.
God knows who's good. No, it's Mike Lennon that's starting now, isn't it?
Is it Lennon? I thought, I can't. Anyway, regardless,
Mike Lennon.
He's rubbish.
Well, So I think you've took the under in all of them so far, and I've took the over in all of them so far. Is that right?
I'm the glass half empty kind of guy.
Exact same. So I have took the Titans to beat the spread at -7. I think they're far too good for the Jags team, even with that defense shit in the bed last week. But again, I've went for the over. But I'm a bit hesitant on the over. I'm not 100% on it, but if I was going for any of them, I would take the over. I think. I just think Derrick Henry's just going to run all over the Jags. And as I mentioned, both defenses are terrible. Acre throwing the 4 touchdowns. The Titans don't have any pass rush. So as bad as Mike Glennon is, they're not going to be able to affect him in the pocket. He'll be able to just stand there and throw passes to hopefully DJ Chark or whatever other weapons they've got apart from Robinson.
I was going to say it's not just Robinson they've actually got now.
But the fact that the Titans don't have any pass rush, I think again that this could be another back and forth one, similar to the Bears Texans game. So last half field going to the over.
So next up we've got your Miami Dolphins versus the previous year's Super Bowl, or the current Super Bowl champions, Kansas City Chiefs, at the Hard Rock Stadium. We've got I don't actually have the spread for this. I'll let you cover that because I've only got my prediction.
Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins. The spread is the Chiefs -7 and over under is 50.5. So I'll let you go first with this one.
I nearly took the spread. I nearly took your team, but I decided to go for the Chiefs without the spread. So that was why I was which technically means that the Dolphins might cover it, but I don't know. I'm just a wee bit iffy either way. So I thought, look, rather than going Dolphins +7 or taking it, I thought, I'll go with Chiefs. That feels a safe bet. If I was doing an ACA, I would do a wee bit of some covering the spread, some not, and then the over 50.5. I just think there's too many offensive players on both sides of the field there that I can see this being an over 60 game, in honesty. That's the way I see this being. A kind of both teams hitting the 30 mark, and it's just who comes out on top. Because I think the Dolphins are up there with one of the most underrated teams this year. They showed a wee bit last year. And on occasions, and they were still building weapons, and they've only further added to that. So, for me, I'm going Chiefs, not covering the spread, and the 50.5 over.
I've also went with the Chiefs just to win, but not cover the spread. I feel. I mean, obviously the Chiefs with Mahomes, Kelsey, Hill, all the weapons, they're unbelievable. But there's something about our defense this season. We're a legit D.
Chiefs must be up there in the top 4 or 5 defense, I think.
If I asked somebody to name 5 defensive players for the Dolphins, I guarantee nobody would be able to name 5 defensive players for the Dolphins because it's loads of kind of no-name guys.
Back for X, Xavier.
Back for X, and big Emmanuel Ogba. But no, that shows how good our coach Flores is. He's a defensive-minded coach as well, so he's getting a load of good out of these guys that on the high draft picks and all that on defense. So they're definitely legit. Regarding the over/under, I don't know. I don't know if it's because the Dolphins are my team, but I've got a feeling it's going to hit the under, but I don't think I can confidently predict whether it's going to be over/under.
I'm confident all day long. That's my banker. That's my banker of the week. Over 60 points.
This game's just kind of kerfuffling me. So the only thing that's if Ryan Fitzpatrick was starting for us, I would go with the over 100% all day long. But the fact that it's Tua and they've not opened up the playbook fully to Tua yet. He took a couple of shots deep last week. But apart from that, they've not opened up the full playbook to Tua. It's a lot of kind of dink and dunk at the moment, like what Brady done in New England. So I don't know that Tua is going to be able to catch up, to keep up with the Chiefs, so that's why I'm thinking maybe the Chiefs will get up a wee bit and start running it, and then we'll put up a few points to keep it within that 7-point spread kind of thing. But I'll be bold then. I'll pick one. I'll go with the under. I'll be bold. I'm not 100%, but I'll go bold. I've not went under yet, so I'll go with the under in this game.
Ooh, no unders allowed.
Do you want to pause it before next one?
Yep, go. So now on to the Giants versus the Cardinals. I'll let you fire that one away.
Cardinals -3 is a spread as favourites and over under 45. I'm again going for an upset in this one. I think the Giants beat the spread here, and I even think that the Giants are going to win the game. I'm not sure on the over under. I think if I was to pick any, I would go the under at the moment. Giants D is legit right now. Cardinals are travelling from West Coast to East Coast, which is hard to do. So Kyler Murray's not been his sell recently as well. So I think the Giants sneak it.
So I've got Cardinals not covering the spread, but just the Cardinals on their own, and the over 45. I don't know, did you make your prediction on that?
I think I said the under, didn't I?
The under, so I'm the over for that. Similarly, I was swaying about taking the Giants, but I've decided to go with the Cardinals. That's maybe me just being NFC East biased there, but I decided to go with them anyway. But I do think it'll be a close one, so I don't think they can cover.
I just think there's something not right with Kyler now. He's no sell.
We found that with all the major quarterbacks this year, the kind of running quarterbacks even, they seem to have taken a step back. But we'll see what happens. But in the MetLife, the Giants are in with a shout any time in the MetLife. Or certainly this over the last kind of 4 weeks, they've just had a sort of uplift in their play. I don't know how many games in a row they've won, but they've put together a few decent results with Daniel Jones recently.
Especially if Kyler's not going to run the ball, because he's not ran it a couple of weeks because he's kind of banged up. So,
aye. Bucks versus Vikings. I have went for the Vikings +7. This is my swing the opposite way for the week. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are due I actually think that the +7 could suggest that Tampa still win. I think the Vikings will win regardless. So potentially you could even go Vikings without the +7 and just take them on their own to get better odds. But I'll go with the Viking +7 for the sake of argument, and I've got the over 52.5. There's just something about the Vikings over the last kind of month or so. They just seem to, Jefferson seems to come into his game. Kirk Cousins, whether it's late on, they seem to just, but sometimes they can be behind by quite a few points and they still seem to spring back at the last minute. So I think Kirk Cousins, the most average quarterback in the world, is going to take out Tampa.
Well, this is one we finally got an agreement on, because I not only think that the Vikings are going to cover the spread, but I think the Vikings are going to actually win the match as well, and I think it's going to hit the over. Usually with the Vikings, usually £100 each on it. Usually with the Vikings, they're a run-heavy team, but you can see what Kirk Cousins has done the last couple of weeks with Thielen and Jefferson. He's put up big numbers, so he's been on fire recently. I mean, the Bucks are coming off the bye week, but
we're going
to talk about later on, Mike Evans might be out for them now. So,
but can you think of a better pair of wide receivers in the NFL than Jefferson and Thielen right now? As in a pair, you maybe individual wide receivers that are better. I think you'll struggle to find many are better than that right now. I think Jefferson is one of the breakout players, like Metcalf. You could have Metcalf, Lockett, but Lockett performs average at times. But I think you would rather.
There's usually one or the other there, isn't it?
And obviously in Green Bay they've only really had Adams for a while, so that's out of contention for conversation. So I think that's the best duo of wide receivers. That
I would say like I'd bring up the Steelers, but it's always like switches every week between 2 out of 4 of them.
Johnson, Juju. Juju's been. I hate Juju. Steelers knocked me out. My name was last year.
I've got a good feeling about the Vikings at the moment. I think the Vikings started like 1-5 and we're shouting at getting the playoffs still.
I think they're 6-6 just now. So that's there you go. That's the tip of the week. Vikings on their own, no handicap. Just take them.
That'll be good odds as well, surely.
So that's all the early games covered, and we're on to the late games. So we've got Raiders Colts. The spread was -2.5, and the under over was set at 51. Fire away.
Actually, that was a Colts -2.5, wasn't it?
Yes, sorry. What's your prediction on that?
I'd take the Colts to beat the spread. Colts to win by more than 2.5. Their defense is their defense. Their defense has been very good this season. The Raiders' defense is bad. I mentioned T.Y. Hilton earlier over the Texans, and he's got the Texans again next week. I think Hilton could have another big week this week as well. He could have back-to-back big weeks. And Jonathan Taylor as well. I think he'll be able to just do what he wants with the Raiders' defense. He'll be able to run all over them. So I'm going to take the Colts to beat the spread, and I'm going to take the under in this one. I did have the over written in, but I think I'm going to take the under. That 51's a bit high for my liking now that I look at it. I think the Colts got up big and they run the ball and waste a lot of clock in the second half. So I'll take the under then.
So we'll make this one short and sweet. I totally agree. That is exactly what I have. So we'll move on. Seahawks Jets.
Do we need to talk about this one?
Well, I don't know what the over under was. Sorry, I don't know what the spread was, but I've just got the Seahawks in their one. Now, you might think that's rather strange, but I think it might have been something like -14. Maybe you've got it there.
-13.5.
So I just don't. I think there's something about Russell Wilson that's off the now, and it's just not clicking. So I was like, look, it might be this is the game that they bounce back, but I thought, no, do you know what? It sounds as crazy as I would take the Seahawks, but I wouldn't take the spread. I just don't see them covering that, and I think it will be under 47 points, which is what the under over was set up when I looked at it. Just for me, just there's something about the Seahawks is totally off right now, and I don't know what it is, and it's difficult for myself because I've got one of their key guys, Russell Wilson, in my fantasy team, but just it's a no for me. Seahawks and under.
Again, totally agree with that one. I can't take a points a spread that's up at when a team's got to score 14 points just to cover a spread. I can't take that's far too big. So I Seahawks to win. Take the under because I think the Seahawks will get up big and win the ball with Chris Carson.
And the Jets are trash.
There's not much to say about the Jets. Basically.
Lions Packers. That's a divisional match. Am I right? So I have went for similarly here. Green Bay not covering the spread, just Green Bay on their own, and under 55 points.
Well, we're totally different here because I've went for the Packers to cover the spread, to beat the spread, and the over.
It could be both ways because
we're going to get a coupon now.
It's one of the ones that it could be because traditionally,
divisional game.
Matthew Stafford fourth quarter will just put up 21 points. Actually, he seems to go to that. It doesn't matter if his team's getting humped. He'll throw 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. He always seems to be in games, so I think it could be. My bet looks like coming in the third quarter, and in the fourth quarter it just goes to pot. But hey ho, I'm going to stick to my guns and I'll go with the under. Just I can see it being a very defensive game. I can see the ball getting run a lot. Both guys have got a lot of options and running back, whether it be Jamal and Aaron or Adrian and DeAndre and whoever the third running back is at the Lions. There's plenty of options there for them just to run the ball all day. So I think there's going to be a lot of that because it's set up for one of those games. It's a kind of Thanksgiving Day game that for me. Surprised it wasn't chosen, but aye. So Green Bay and the under.
I agree with what you said about the third and fourth quarter, Matt Stafford. That's the way I see the game playing out. I see the Packers getting up big by 2 touchdowns, maybe even 3 scores quite early on by half-time, third quarter. And Stafford's going to have to play catch-up, so he'll have to throw it a lot. So, that's why I think it's going to hit the over on that one. But I still think the Packers are too far superior than the Lions at the moment to cover that. So that's what I've
went. Chargers Falcons. The Chargers are at the Falcons must be -3, and it's the over under at 50. You go first.
That went up. That must have.
Well, it was.
I had the Falcons -2.5. So yours would have been better than mine then. So I had the Falcons -2.5 and the over under 49.5. So we'll go with the -3 and 50 points. So this was a Julio Jones is not going to play this week, which was quite late on today. That was found out, which originally I've got written down the Chargers to cover the spread and the points to hit the over, but that news with Julio Jones being out changes that completely for me. I still think the Chargers are going to win and cover the spread, beat the spread, but I think it's going to hit the under, because whenever Matt Ryan's been without Julio this season, he's been crap basically. So originally I thought this is going to be a back-and-back game, a proper shootout, but now I've totally flipped that around. Chargers to beat the spread and it to hit the under.
So we can agree for a second or third time, whatever. But I have the Chargers +3 and the over. I had the over, sorry, but I'm also under because it was similarly. We discussed it briefly before we started talking about Julio Jones is out. So yeah. I am also under 50. So we have an agreement. Yes. The ACA is finally starting. It might be a treble.
I think that's a treble.
Might be all we
I think we'll maybe agree with this next one, mind you.
Yes, I think well, partly we'll see. I'm certainly not backing the Eagles, but it's Eagles Saints at the link. I don't know what the spread is for the Saints, but I have only went for the Saints, which might shock some of you. And I have went for under 42.5, which might sound shocking, but both of these defenses are actually pretty good, and it depends how the Eagles play. And with that wee bit of an unknown for the Saints of Jalen Hurts, which is probably a good time to mention the fact that Carson Wentz has been dropped, £128 million extension given
down the drain,
and he's now been benched for a guy who we drafted in the second round. For me, I think the Saints will win comfortably, but I don't know. You maybe have it noted what the spread was.
The spread was the Saints -6.5.
So I just think there's something about it that these two defenses, the Eagles, even against Green Bay, they let up a late touchdown, the Aaron Jones 90 yards, but even up until that last 3 minutes, the Eagles had a chance to still win that by fluke because Jalen Hurts threw a late touchdown, and then they had a punt return quite quickly after that to actually give them a shout. But there's something about, I think the Saints will win, but I don't think they'll cover. And I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think you're going to have like one of these 21-17 type games. It's going to be really low-scoring. I think this, again, I'll not kid myself, the Saints are going to win, but with the unknown of Jalen Hurts, I think there's maybe some touchdowns and maybe Miles Sanders gets a bit more of a game, because when you're also covering a quarterback who can run, like your Kyler Murrays and Lamar Jacksons, tends to put a wee bit more space for that running back. So let's see how those guys go. Be a close game, but that's my thoughts, and it's not a bias. It's a tied to the vein, but it's the Saints.
I mostly agree with it. The only difference I've took is I've put the Saints to cover the spread. They only need to win by a touchdown to cover that spread. So with the Jalen Hurts starting, the unknown of that against a very good Saints defense, a rookie quarterback starting against a good defense usually doesn't turn out great. But that being said, Hurts can escape the pocket better than Carson Wentz can. So the Saints won't have much tape on them. So, I mean, it could be a shock because that sometimes happens when teams don't have. Look at Herbert to start the season. Teams never had tape on him. Goes out, shocks the world if they said that he's going to be a bust and all that. So that could easily happen, but I don't see it. I think the Saints will cover the spread, and I've took the under as well because both defences, as you said, are good. I think the Saints will probably try and run the ball quite a lot, try and kill the clock a bit, and expect a Taysom Hill rushing touchdown.
So here's my predictions. I haven't really done this, but I'm going to say Jalen Hurts to score 2 touchdowns, 1 throwing, 1 running. Miles Sanders to hit 100 yards. But here's my bold prediction. Carson Wentz will be involved in 3 snaps during the game.
3?
Because when Carson was at quarterback, Jalen Hurts was heavily involved. So Carson would move it to wide receiver. I've got a funny feeling you might see something similar. And they'll flip it and Carson will come into the game. Because they only want that guy sitting at the bench completely, because I think they still think he's the starter, unless Jalen sets the world on fire. So, fart, aye. Yes, it's the farty season. But that's my prediction, is that Carson Wentz will take 3 snaps. We'll talk about it next time if I'm right or not, but Jalen Hurts will be lined up as a wide receiver at least 3 times in this game, with Carson coming in, taking a few snaps, just to mix things up a wee bit, which is what the Eagles may as well do because they're out it. Last game of the late games is the 49ers against Washington. Let you give your thoughts.
Spread was 49ers -3 and over-under at 43. I could see this one going either way. I wouldn't touch this one with a large poll, I don't think. I have took the 49ers to cover the spread and the under, but I could easily see the Washington winning that and the under coming in. I definitely think it'll hit the under. 100% think it'll hit the under, but it's just what team is going to come out on top. Antonio Gibson's going to be missing for the Washington.
Massive, because he's been one of the best players in the second half of the season.
He's going to be out for at least 2 weeks, I think, with tough toe. So, but both teams are probably still going to lean in the run anyway, which means that the clock's going to go faster, less opportunity for points. So that's how I think it will hit the under. But 49ers cover the spread and under.
Well, we have to completely disagree because I'm taking Washington plus 3.5. Clark giving you some of that. And the over, I'm taking the over, I'm afraid. So we completely disagree. So that's going to be interesting to see who comes up on that one, because I think there's going to be a lot of running touchdowns. But I do think they managed to squeeze out the over. I've got the over at 43.
That Washington defence is just the defensive line. We spoke about it earlier. Legit.
Aye, that last 10 yards though, they'll get punched home. Honestly, there'll be a lot of throwing in that last 10 yards in the red zone. They'll get sorted. But I think we both disagree on that one, so we'll see how we go next week. It's Sunday Night Football. We've got Bills Steelers. I've got the Bills at -1.5 and the over 48 is the spread. So I have went for the Bills at -1.5 and I've went for the over at 48. So I think the Bills take out the Steelers.
This is only game of the week I've got nothing written down for. Honestly, this could go either way. I'll just make this one up in the spot because I've got no clue, but
Josh Allen, 5 touchdowns.
The Bills' defense isn't great. The Steelers is elite. Both offenses are elite on their day. Who turns up? What's the weather going to be like? James Conner's back for the Steelers. I think the Steelers have got more receiving options if the game turns out to be that way rather than a run fest. So with the Bills being -2, I'll take the Steelers to cover that. I think I'll take the over as well on that. I mean, the Steelers D are elite, but like Josh Allen's he's been brilliant this season, so I think he'll be able to escape the pocket in the pass rush and make plays happen. So I'll take the Steelers to cover and the over.
The last one for Monday Night Football, we've got the Browns versus the Ravens. We've got the Ravens are set at minus 2.5 when I checked, and the over-under was at 47. So, what you go first?
Exactly what I have. So, again, this is another elite defence. The Ravens, they've been excellent this season. Offense looked much better last week there with Lamar coming back. He actually looked like last season's Lamar Jackson. I think he ran in like a 30-40 yard touchdown or something like that. Threw for quite a bit, threw a touchdown or two. That being said, I'm going to go for an upset in this one, I think. I've not got it written down that way, but something's telling me now to switch that about. So I'm going to go for the Browns to cover that spread. But I'm going to go for the under 47.
Well, we're completely opposite there. So I'm on the Ravens minus 2.5 and the over at 47. I just think the Browns was not a one-off, right, because they are a good team, but I just think Lamar seems to come into these games a bit more. They've got a bit more in the weapons running game, so I'm going to stick with the Ravens, and they'll cover the spread at minus 2.5 and the over. And I think that covers the NFL predictions for the week.
Yep.
So now on to preview of week 14 matchups. So I've got it noted as first of all, we'll cover the Spoon Trophy. And up first was Robert versus Clark.
Yep, that's what I have. Obviously, I don't follow the projections and stuff like that, but for the sake of this, we'll say Clark's projected to win. But he's not going to have Antonio Gibson, as we talked about. We've got Mark Andrews back. Kyler Murray's his quarterback, who we touched on earlier, has been poor, hampered by injury. Robert, maybe without Crowder, he got added late. Injury report yesterday or today.
Golladay as well, I believe. Kerry Golladay is out, which I know he's got him listed in his bench, but if Crowder wasn't,
he's out now, yeah.
He's confirmed, so it's a big miss to have as an option, especially we're talking about that Lions game earlier.
Breaking news: Kenny Golladay confirmed is out. Deebo Samuel will play, and Justin Jackson has been activated from IR. There's a chance Justin acted.
Just check your lineup before you set it. There's no accountability held here for getting the prediction wrong of who's out. But Golladay's listed as out, so I think Clark could see himself resting easy in the last couple of weeks where he is out of the Spoon Trophy. In my predictions here.
Well, who you got to win?
I've got Clark here because Cooper Kupp
Clark to win.
12 points, so I think that's a good start for your wide receiver.
I think that this matchup's going to be won or lost at the running back position, and I think I would rather Clark's running backs because he's got Eckler and Montgomery.
Aye, Eckler, the guy that might have seen him in the playoffs if he'd played him. The injury reserve gate week. That's a long word, but Antonio Gibson, as you said, I think he'll miss a couple of weeks, but I think Clark still sees it through.
I agree.
And next up, we have Andy and Pedro, the two guys that were really, really unlucky not to make the playoffs and are now playing for the Spoon Trophy. Currently, Andy's projected to win, but can Pedro make a recovery? That's the question. Now, Pedro got Akers with 20 points in his first game, which is still really good. It's almost double his points, which is surprising then to see that he's not projected to win, which I know you said you don't read too much into projections, but when you look at who Andy has, and I don't have the standings exactly in front of me, but I'm sure Andy was up there with some of the highest points total for the season, and he just tailed away towards the end of the season. But he's projected to beat Pedro, even with that good score, by a good 10 points. But I think I'm going to lean towards Andy here, just on the Kamara and Hopkins, assuming Hopkins plays, which he's now questionable. If Hopkins goes, then I'm going to lean towards Andy here. Sorry, Pedro.
Little tidbit, this is actually the highest scorer of the season so far against the lowest scorer of the season so far in the league. So Andy's obviously highest scorer and Pedro's the lowest. So that's kind of interesting as well. I think I agree. I mean, Herbert should get back on track against the Falcons. Diggs and Phelan, I think they should both be fine, even though on paper they've got tough matchups. Mike Davis is probably going to be available to Andy as well, because McCaffrey I don't think is going to play at all this week. Pretty sure he will get an update probably tonight that he'll be out. I don't see him playing at all. He's got something like 3 or 4 injuries. So, but Pedro's got Gallman, who's been good. He's been an RB1 recently. Corey Davis could have a big game against the Jaguars for the Titans. But does he play Clyde Edwards-Helaire after last week's debacle?
I'd be checking right up to the last minute on Twitter what's happening.
But he's got the defense against the Jets. So
even when he's ill.
He's got Julio Jones out now, though. I'm sure Pedro's got him.
It's Julio Jones and Kyle Rudolph is the two that.
So I would find a way, and I'd even written this down before Julio got ruled out, that I would try and find a way to get Tim Patrick into his starting lineup. So now he should replace Julio with Tim Patrick. There's your wee bit of advice, Pedro. Thank me later.
Next up, we've got Lee Ian. But before we do that, I've just got something I would like to play for everybody.
I'm the best there is. Simple. I mean, I wake up in the morning and I piss excellence. Nobody can handle my stuff. I'm just a big, hairy Scottish man. Winning machine.
So that was our former champion Ian at the start of the season.
Current champion.
Current champion Ian at the start of the season, who is now in the Spoon Trophy. So I'll let you kick it off, Ian.
Back-to-back trophies incoming.
Aye, unfortunately, the wrong time. I'll give you that one.
Aye.
Irish cricket.
Aye, a wee bit of a conundrum for me getting into this one. We touched on him earlier, Lamar Jackson. Is he finally back now? He had a good game. But Taysom Hill has also been good. He's been playing well. I'm going to have to just check my lineup up until the last minute as well, with all these injuries and stuff, questionables that we spoke about on the WhatsApp stuff. So I do believe Carson will have a good game against the Jets. We projected that the Seahawks are going to get up big early and run the ball later on. Jonathan Taylor should get good against the Raiders. Lee might be without Josh Jacobs, but he's got Connor back. Ridley, now with Julio being out, could have a big game. So I think it's a bit of a toss-up, tough matchup with both of us having some injury concerns. So it'll be interesting.
On paper, I think it's if Jonathan Taylor can have a similar week to last week, and Gaskin as well. I know he had a fumble, but he still had a good week. And Hill, again, if he can throw another couple of touchdowns, and you're in with a shout. But again, Tannehill had a really good week last week, and so did Connor. You see Ridley, Gesicki, which I know you're not overly fond of, but Claypool as well. I don't know. I don't think that projection that's set up here, you're projected 121 and Lee set for 107. I think it's a closer matchup than this personally. I think there's a lot of players in Lee's team that I would be having in my team. So that would say to me, look, that's I think that projection isn't quite right, but I think it's going to be 50-50 there. I think you're going to find this game's within 5 points, not the 14 or whatever it is just now. And it's just who gets the lucky. If Taylor and Gaskin start off good, I think you'll take the win. But if one of Connor, Tannehill, Claypool, whoever get the 2 touchdowns or at least the 3 passing touchdowns for Tannehill, then maybe Lee just sneaks it. But it's a massive matchup because you don't want to be that guy who's fighting the spoon trophy. You don't want to be winning 2 trophies, mate.
Relegation.
Aye, we've got another guy lined up. He's ready to join.
That for the 14 team league last year.
Right.
Boom, 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 boom. Breaking news. David Johnson has been placed on the IR COVID list.
Is that a fact?
Yes. Sleeper update.
There you go. See, I've turned it off my phone.
Hot
So
take.
who has David Johnson then?
I don't know.
Do we know?
Somebody will figure it out.
Aye. Whoever's got him, here's dropping him.
Put
David
him in
Johnson. It's Dan. Dan.
Well, lucky he's on a bye.
He's in a bye week, guy, but if he's on IR, he's fucked either way. So that ends the Spoon Trophy, and then I think a quick note mentioned for James and Dan for making the first and second seeds, getting into the bye, getting a pass to the second round. Congratulations.
Well done, boys. Well done.
Was hoping to be one of those mentioned guys, but Dan, the last few weeks of the season, just put up enough points just to stretch out the way of myself and Ben. Ben been unlucky, so I think at one point Ben was the clear favourites, and I don't know if he lost 2 out of 3 or whatever it was, but a bit unlucky. And Dan, like myself, put a few wins together, but Dan stretching ahead with the points total. So congratulations, Dan, there. Ben and Gary Houston is the first playoff match that we're going to talk about, and Ben really, really unlucky because he has got 3 wide receivers which are out, and I think they're out for pretty much a while. We've got DJ Moore, who's out with COVID, Samuel also out with COVID, and then Will Fuller, who decided to roid up.
Curtis Samuel
Allegedly.
Samuel's been activated again, so he will have Samuel available.
Well, that's changed then, because that wasn't what I had earlier on. So
It came through earlier today. Well, earlier tonight, kind of thing. Samuel's available to play now, so he'll have him back. But I Fuller and DJ Moore, obviously. Obviously not. Gary's going to be without McCaffrey, though, in my opinion. I don't see any chance McCaffrey plays this week.
I think
Hunt's got a tough game.
McCaffrey, just to go back to
Johnson's been dropping.
McCaffrey got changed to doubtful, from questionable to doubtful, which generally means you're
Aye.
And as you say, Mike Evans and James Robinson are also questionable, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, does it? James Robinson's moved out of questionable, so maybe you'll get him.
I mean, Deontay Johnson's been dropping a lot of passes recently, so I don't know if Gary's going to play him. We spoke about the Josh Allen against Steelers. God knows what's going to happen there. AJ Brown should be big. He'll have a big game. Sanders and Drake, they're both kind of questionable, aren't they? Well, Ben, both running backs, but I think they both should play anyway. So
against the Saints defence, I think Sanders is going to struggle. But as I say, I think he'll get 100 yards. I don't think he'll get a touchdown, but I think that 100. I think you've got to play them, but I think is probably if Carson's playing, I think Sanders would really struggle. But with Jalen Hurts playing, I think Sanders might pick up a few more yards because he's got more space without having to put the Saints having to rush the quarterback a lot more. But I
think Ben should flex in Curtis Samuel. I think he could have potentially have a big game. I mean, he's going to start Robinson. He's probably going to start Chark. That's Gary. Sorry, it's got them. They should have big games. My projections. T.Y. Hilton, I'd flex him in. So it's probably between Hilton and Samuel for that last flex, or the 2 flex spots for Ben, I think.
I think I can see Ben just sneaking this one. It's going to be tight, especially with Christian McCaffrey. If McCaffrey goes and he performs, then maybe. But if he doesn't go, I think Ben will sneak this one, even with DJ Moore. I don't see
any world that McCaffrey plays.
Nah, especially when you move to doubtful. But hey, we shall see. But my prediction is Ben just sneaks this one.
It's going to be, that one's going to be very, very tight, I think.
Aye, again, it's going to be like yourself and Lee. It's going to be maybe 5
Who's
points or
Who's the
so.
quarterbacks? Was it Josh Allen?
Jared Goff, who put up 17 points for Ben, and Josh Allen. So it just depends what kind of week Josh Allen has against the Steelers. That could be the big decider. And then the last game of the playoffs will be Gary McNaught and myself. And the big injury listed ones for them for questionable was DeAndre Swift for myself, and I believe it's Alan Lazard and Denzel Mims for Gary. They're the kind of notable ones.
I think Swift's going to play. Lazard played last week, so he should play. And
Mims is out, actually. He's definitely out now.
I was going to say he's looking quite doubtful. I don't think he'll play. So if he's out now, then
the only problem with Swift was he was a COVID list and then he had an illness, so he's been struggling a wee bit. And it depends what sort of illness it is and concussion. So hey, you don't know. It's going to be another tight one. Right now, Gary's the favourite on paper because I think Woods is something.
I don't want to jinx you, but I don't want to jinx you, but I think you should win this quite comfortably. I just think with Chubb and Aaron Jones, they're going to probably put up at the very, very least 15 points each. Jones will probably get into his 20s. Chubb could easily do that. If Swift plays what he was playing before he got injured, or majority of the snaps, I don't think he will. I think they'll probably split him and Peterson this week. But he still should have a decent enough week, maybe like 8, 9, 10 points, round about that mark. Tonyan has been excellent at tight end. I said about Devontae Parker and Tua at quarterback. I don't know.
They're all hinting at dropping Parker. Gary, they're all really hinting at dropping Parker, but I would put it this way, I'd rather have Beasley than Parker right now. But Parker was targeted 3 times in the red zone, I believe, when I was watching red zone. It was 3 times he was targeted. You get one of those.
I don't think there's MD.
He's the red zone guy for
on his bench that he can put in ahead of Parker. I think he's got to play him. Josh Jacobs obviously is questionable, and Gary's got the Booker, so he could maybe plug Booker in as a sneaky start if Jacobs is out.
Aye, which I think he will be at this stage.
Yeah, I think he will be. But that Derrick Henry, he's going to be a monster. I think this matchup's going to be one with the running backs. Derrick Henry could easily put up the same amount of points as your running back. So
the one advantage that I do have is
I think
Gary plays all his games up until the early hours of Sunday into Monday. I have Nick Chubb playing on the Tuesday for us, which is the Monday night football. So I've always got that safety net, if you like, which is hopefully I do enough to go over the line. But if I don't, I'm sitting with Nick Chubb and I'm really pushing for him to get over the line, like he occasionally does. Puts up a TD or so. So I think that summarises that. I think there's none of the matchups, whether it's a spoon or the playoffs, I think are foregone conclusions. I think they're all really tough matches. So best of luck for everybody, whatever you're doing. But it's been a tough season for everybody, but hopefully we can see it out and get some good matchups again this week.
Yeah.
What the hell is that?
We'll quickly move on to injuries then. Just a quick brief run through. We've probably mentioned most of them anyway. So Josh Jacobs not looking good to play. McCaffrey, I don't think he'll play at all. Mixon is eligible to come off the injured reserve, but he's not. So I don't think he's going to play again this season, whoever's got Mixon.
James, I believe.
I don't see him playing. They've got nothing to play for, so I don't see the sense in bringing him back. Antonio Gibson's got tough toe. We both said that we expect him to miss at least 2 weeks. Des Bryant, apparently that was a false positive test, but he's come out and said that he won't play against this season. So we'll see if that was a heat of the moment thing or
I think I think he thinks it was the paranoia kicked in that one. I think he thinks he was getting flushed out because he felt like he gets single-handedly picked out of training to go and do a test. And I think he feels there's something a bit more to that. But that's just Des Bryant. But at least you can say that finally Des Bryant caught something, because we know he can't catch a pass.
And then just the last couple, DJ Moore on the COVID list, Mark Andrews off the COVID list, and Mike Evans I don't think will play. You got any others?
No, just the ones we'd mentioned during the matchups I'd noted overall. So no more for me. Starts of the week. This is a wee segment we've got here where we're going to predict our starts of the week, other than the obvious, like Patrick Mahomes and Cook at the Vikings at the running back and stuff like that. We're going to try and pick a few other guys who we think who are maybe second tier players that might do well. So I'll let you go first, Ian.
Each position for
we'll do a position. We'll do a pick each. Then we'll go for that.
So we'll start just with the quarterback. My quarterback start of the week is Justin Herbert. I'm going to back him to bounce back this week against that Falcons defense. Even though I said that I was going to take the over, I now think it's going to hit the under. I still think that that Falcons defense isn't great. So I still think he'll do enough to get at least 20 points. And the Patriots are always, Belichick is always very good at against rookie quarterbacks. So I'm giving the confidence boost that Herbert's going to bounce back this week.
And I am also going for a bounce back player this week. I am going to go for Big Ben. I think he's going to do well against the Bills D. The Bills D are the greatest in the world. I can see Big Ben maybe putting up 3 touchdowns and plenty of yardage against this team. So I think this is going to be their bounce back. They played a tough Washington defence last week, and they'll come up against a slightly easier Bills defence, which traditionally in the past have been pretty good. But this season, I just think the Big Ben, I know I said they're slightly overrated, the Steelers, but I do think they're better than this Bills D. So there's Big Ben, 3 touchdowns. And probably hitting at least 250 yards at least. Aye, that's your lock. Next, I had running back Ian's Jonathan Taylor against the Raiders defence. Again, not a fan of the Raiders on the defensive side of the ball. So I think Jonathan Taylor had a really good week last week, and I think he continues it on and only gets stronger and makes him an obvious choice for Ian to use as a keeper next year. But yep, I'll take Jonathan Taylor.
My running back start of the week is David Montgomery. Houston is the second best matchup for running backs for fantasy purposes. So 31st best in the league, 31st worst in the league, whatever way you want to look at it. Running backs. So Montgomery gets all the carries for them, and even get some targets out of the backfield. So I think Montgomery will absolutely light it up this week. Over 130 yards and 2 touchdowns for Montgomery this week.
Good shout.
Next up at wide receiver. My wide receiver start of the week, I have Robbie Anderson. Quite simple.
Robbie.
No DJ Moore. Don't think McCaffrey will play. Broncos' best cornerback, AJ Bowie, is suspended for the performance-enhancing drugs. So that pretty much sums that one up. That was an easy one for me to take. Robbie Anderson.
I was sort of hoping Samuel would have been added to that list, but he's making his way back, because otherwise I'd have seen Robbie having a potentially even bigger week. But maybe having another threat might open it up for him rather than their best cornerbacks just marking Robbie. I have went for Tyler Lockett, who has had a bit of a howler occasionally over the last 2 or 3 weeks. He's just not been performing in his normal level. I think that's just the Seahawks in general, but they are playing the Jets. So this could be the one where Tyler gets a couple of big runs against this Jets defence, who, as we've seen at the very last minute, let Henry Ruggs in for a touchdown to win the game against the Raiders. So I'm going to put Tyler Lockett, which kind of goes against what I've said for my over-under bets projection. But I still think Lockett can, let's say, break 100 yards and a touchdown. So let's say he's going to hit at least maybe 20 points this week with his receptions and his yardage and his touchdown. So, Tyler Lockett. Lockett. Lockett.
Lockett in.
Lockett.
Finally, tight end. I think we're both kind of taking a deep shot at tight end this week. It is a bit of a crapshoot anyway, so we're trying to get somebody at tight end that's maybe obviously not the obvious. So my tight end start of the week is Travis Kelce. My tight end start of the week is Jordan Akins from the Texans. Akins led all the tight ends in snaps last week for the Texans. They usually kind of get 2 or 3 involved there, but Akins led them all in snaps. Chicago is a very, very good matchup for tight ends. They've given up 9 touchdowns and a top 12 performance for tight ends the last 6 weeks, 6 consecutive weeks. So Akins is definitely a high risk, but it could be a high reward. I could see him getting a touchdown or 2. So high risk but high reward, I think.
I have also went with the high risk, so I have went with Dalton Schultz of the Dallas Cowboys. They're playing the Bengals this week, and traditionally Bengals aren't the greatest against tight ends. And as you mentioned earlier, Andrew Dalton's coming back against his old club, so I can just see him putting up. It is a bit of a revenge game, and although they've got the deep threat of Cooper, Lamb, etc., I just think the short game is going to be Andy's way out and getting the ball moving without relying heavily on Ezekiel. Dalton Schultz. Both these guys, I believe, are on free agency. So if you have decided to listen and you want to take a punt, if we're wrong, don't blame us. Because none of us are starting them in our teams, but only as being a second or third tier tight end, I do think these guys are going to have a good week.
I wouldn't start them over the likes of like Gronk and Tunyon and
but
guys like that. But if somebody's struggling there at tight end, I'd start them over like a Kyle Rudolph, for talking sake, who gave somebody 0 points last week, and I'd take the shot on them at that instance. So
that's a shout. That's a shout
for
you, Pedro.
High reward.
And briefly, we'll planning to do a commissioner's corner moving forward, which we'll speak with Gary about anything he wants to add into this. But the only update we really have is that we now have a trophy that has been purchased. So hopefully whoever wins this year gets a trophy they get to hold on to for the next 12 months or so. And
I know what it is, what it's like, what it's going to be like. So I'm keeping that a secret as well.
The only
took forever to try and find something for us. They wanted that one that you had posted. They wanted like 300 quid delivery from America for that, plus the 180 quid that it cost for the trophy. So it's been a bit of a nightmare trying to find like a proper good one that we want. So Gary's messaged a private company and stuff. So he's done a good job with that one. So
only one thing for sure is it's not going back to the home in Dorai.
No, it's not. I'm happy with my wee crappy one now.
And the final segment will be the booming kicker of the week, which will be Ian's favourite segment.
The booming kicker of the week. The fantasy playoffs are here, so it's the race to the championship. You should help your chances with the Colts kicker Rodrigo Blankenship.
How many points is he projected?
I don't know.
He is up at 8.3. That's his projection.
I project. Who are the Colts playing this week again?
They're playing the Las Vegas Raiders.
I project that Rodrigo is going to get 18 points this week.
Well, there we go. You're predicting Philip Rivers is going to dry up. Philip Rivers was
Which-
one of my other guys who I thought might do well this week.
Which, if he gets 18 points, he'll probably outscore 4 of my starters or something.
Who wouldn't put their faith in a guy who looks like that?
With the goggles.
Oh, Jesus. Anyway,
Well, that's been quite fun. We'll see what everyone lets us know what they think of it.
probably a tad too long
What's any
for
changes?
anyone. If anyone listens to this point, Ian will send you 20 quid, because to have
Aye,
listened for
there's
this
a-
long, you've done well.
There's a code word that you have to put in the chat, and it is
I think it's just if you know the booming kicker of the week. If anyone mentions booming kicker of the week in the
just
WhatsApp
type his
group,
name in the chat.
then that proves it, and there'll be a check your way. Installments of £2 a week or something. Right, so
Well, thanks a lot then, folks. I think that kind of sums it up, doesn't it?
Aye, so we'll see how it goes. See how folk like the format, and I think it'd be
Yeah.
bothered with 2 Ayrshire guys speaking. I know we've got. Well, I say 2 Ayrshire guys.
It's
We've got
heavy.
We've got 2 other Ayrshire guys in the league as well, and Gary McNaught and Lee. I believe they're based for Ayrshire as well. So the Ayrshire crew
Hopefully.
is heavy and strong.
Nearly half the league.
Right.
A
So
quarter of the league, a third of the league.
aye, good chat, and look forward to reviewing if these results. We'll see about potentially doing a podcast type thing before next Friday, which will be just to summarise the results and who made it through to the playoffs and who's still in the Spoon Trophy race, which I know nobody wants to be. A good shout for Ian for putting this together. That's the third one that Ian's done. So
Thanks for messaging me to attend as well. It's been a lot better than just me sitting there in my van myself. It's something that we've kind of managed to bounce off each other. So it's not just one guy sitting there talking. It's 2 of us having a wee bit of a laugh, some beers bouncing off each other. So it's been very enjoyable.
Even if nobody's been listening, we've enjoyed it. So anyway, till next time.
Adios.
Cheers.